Okay, mic check 1 2. It's the Y2K collector, and we're about 9 days away from the Christmas holiday. And so I know everyone's running around trying to pick up their last minute gifts, and I thought that it would only be right if I shared some of my 2023 retro gamer gift ideas. I just have a few things that I think, if you know anyone who's a video game collector, plays video games, is into retro games, these are some ideas that they might really appreciate going into this holiday season. So I'm not going to take any more time jabbering or blabbering. I'm going to dive right in. And I've got three different categories, right? And they're made up of mini consoles, some of your more standard consoles, and then some handhelds. And these are just three of the categories that we'll be looking at today. So the first category that we're looking at is your mini consoles. Now, these were very, very popular 2 to 3 years ago, especially during the pandemic when everyone was at a nostalgic all-time high. I think people were watching their old favorite TV shows, and of course, everyone was playing their old favorite games. And so that's what made some of these minis really great. So we'll take a look at them basically based on price range, starting with the Neo Geo Mini. Now, the Neo Geo Mini doesn't hold a lot of nostalgia for most people because I don't think there were many folks back in the day who could afford a Neo Geo console or any of the games. But many of us have played some of the Neo Geo games in the arcades. I know I've played a ton of Neo Geo games at the arcade store, but I just was never able to get a home version of it, right? So with this Neo Geo Mini, the cool thing about it is that it does come with a built-in screen, and this is something that's unique to the Neo Geo Mini. I don't think any other mini console comes with a built-in screen. So that's what's cool about this one. It is powered by a USB-C connector. It does have the built-in old school arcade controls. Those can be a little bit clunky at times, but it is cool just for the nostalgia of it. It does come with 40 amazing Neo Geo games. And again, these are some of the arcade classics that if you know someone who grew up playing arcade games, or if you know someone who's more of like a gamer's gamer, I think that's who this would be for this Christmas, because it comes with all of the amazing Metal Slug titles, starting with Metal Slug, the first one, going all the way down to Metal Slug 5. I mean, you've got King of the Monsters, you've got The Last Blade 2. That's a really good one right there. And then you've got these amazing shoot 'em ups like Blazing Star, Last Resort, Ghost Pilot, some really, really good stuff. I mean, 40 action-packed games. You got Magician Lord, Sengoku 3, wow. And then, of course, all the Shock Troopers games. So, I mean, if you're looking for a Friday night action blast, this is definitely one way that you can give someone that. I think this is definitely for someone who grew up in the arcade era. The cool thing is that if they don't want to play it on this little small screen, it does come with a connector for you to be able to connect it with most modern day TVs, any 4K or HDMI TV. And if you don't want to use those clunky controls, you can get this, Neo Geo kind of gamepad here. It's not an exact replica of the old school one. It doesn't have the clickiness, but it is cool. It's a cool, easier way to play those games, especially if you're going to connect it to a TV screen. You can get the Neo Geo Mini itself for somewhere between 35 and 40 bucks. And I think the controller you could probably get for 25 bucks. So this is probably the cheapest route to go. Not many people will know about these games. Again, this is more for your gamer's gamer, someone who knows about retro games and action games, or maybe someone who grew up in the arcades. They might appreciate this one. Definitely good price. The next category of minis is going to be the Sega minis. I'm not going to spend too much time on these because I think these are some of the more, well, this one for sure is one of the most popular minis. The Sega Genesis Mini is one of the most popular ones, of course, because it's probably the second most iconic console of all time, with the second most iconic video game character of all time in Sonic the Hedgehog. So anyone could argue me on that. I guess it's arguable, but for most folks, the general public, there's two people we all know. Sonic, and we all know the other guy, the plumber. We'll get to him in a second. But the Sega Genesis Mini is really great because it's going to give you that nostalgic blast, right? Echo the Dolphin, Altered Beast, Alyssa Dragoon, Ghouls and Ghosts, Golden Axe, Sonic 1, 2, Space Harrier, Street Fighter 2, Streets of Rage 2. So just a blast from the past, a lot of action. That's why I love Sega, because it's good for that. And they even give you some cool titles like Castlevania Bloodlines, which is super expensive. Comic Zone, which is definitely a game I grew up on this game. I played it both on Sega and on the PC. And then, of course, Contra Hard Corps. Spent many a night trying to beat this one. So, I mean, the Sega Genesis Mini is definitely a good way to go, because this will be a nostalgic rush for most people. The Sega Genesis Mini 2 does have a lot of nostalgia, but I don't know if the games are going to appeal to as much of the general public as, say, the Sega Genesis Mini, just because it has more kind of like niche titles, like, Shining Force. I don't know how many people played that. Night Trap, Final Fight CD, because it does come with some Sega CD games. But I would say probably the more known titles on this one would probably be like Sonic 3D Blast, maybe Earthworm Jim 2, but maybe Streets of Rage 3. But this one has, the thing I like about the Sega Genesis Mini 2 is that it does have a lot of those really expensive Sega Genesis games. Like if you were to try to buy these individually, you'd probably spend an arm and a leg. Especially when you start talking about games like Elemental Master, which is super expensive, Alien Soldier, which wasn't even released, I think, stateside. You've also got games like Splatterhouse 2, Streets of Rage 3. Those are some heavy hitters. Truxton, that's also a really expensive one. And then even when you start looking at the Sega CD games that they offer, you've got games like Robo Alesti. That's definitely an expensive game. So you definitely get a ton of value when you pick up these two bad boys here. If you find them online, this one will run you around $89, so around $90 on that one. But the Sega Genesis Mini, I think you could still find this maybe for somewhere around $60 or so. I'm not sure. Somebody let me know down in the comments. I don't think it's that expensive anymore. Those have gone down. Great way to give someone a nostalgic rush. I think they'll enjoy that. Now we'll get to the most expensive ones, and here's the big boy. Here's the heavy hitter. Here's the one that we all know about, and it's the Super Nintendo Classic Edition. And obviously this one is going to be probably the most nostalgic, and this will relate to probably most people, just because it has the most iconic game character in video games, being Mario himself, of course, and then Mario and Yoshi. And then it has some of the most iconic games as well. I mean, they really did this well. They included Super Mario World, Contra 3, The Legend of Zelda, Link to the Past, Super Mario Kart, Super Metroid, Punch-Out, Castlevania 4, Mega Man X, I mean, Donkey Kong Country. I mean, just a ton of stuff on this one. Even Star Fox 2, one that you wouldn't have really known about until they brought it here on the Mini. So this is definitely going to be a great way to surprise someone, I think, this Christmas. They might get a ton of fun just reliving their memories, especially if they've never had one of these before. So definitely recommend that. And then again, this last one here, oh, by the way, so this one is probably going to run you anywhere between $120 and $150. The Super Nintendo Classic Edition is a little more expensive than the others, just because a lot of people wanted it when it came out. So that one is going to run you. And then last but not least, you've got the TurboGrafx 16 Mini. This is going to be the most expensive one, especially if you buy this brand new. You're going to be looking somewhere between $300, around $300 or so, maybe $350. And you might ask, well, why is this one so expensive? Well, for two reasons. The TurboGrafx, like the Neo Geo, was a very kind of rare console for us over here. I don't think a lot of people really bought into it when it first came out. But this was one of those consoles that really highlighted a lot of the really cool and fun games you would have seen in like some arcade stores. These consoles are really for your gamer's gamer, because they carry a lot of like shoot 'em ups, beat 'em ups, hack and slash style games, import games that most people aren't really going to be into. These are real niche games. But when you start looking at some of the titles that are on this, like Parasol Stars, Air Zonk, um, Lords of Thunder, Bomberman 93, Soldier Blade. I mean, you start looking at some of these titles. If you go and look some of these games up individually on the TurboGrafx 16, they're just crazy expensive, right? So you'd spend thousands of dollars trying to assemble all these games along with the TurboGrafx 16 Mini. And I think the real reason why it's so much more than the Neo Geo is because they did a really good job replicating the original TurboGrafx 16. because of that, I think that's why the way they did the console itself and then the games that they put on this, they really did this well. And so I think that's why this one is going for so much. Again, whoever you get this for will love you to death. It is expensive. This one is about a $300 one. So you do have a number of options here. I think if they would have just done a replica Neo Geo AES, this would have been crazy expensive, but they just messed up with the little arcade thing. All right, so there go your mini options. Now moving right along. Now let's say you got someone who's more of like a 6th generation or 5th generation. I don't know which generation these guys are. Let me know down in the comments what generation I'm looking at here. But if you grew up with the N64 or in the era of the PlayStation, then I think this is a really good opportunity this Christmas to kind of get these consoles for anyone that grew up in that generation. Why? Because the PlayStation is iconic and it's got some really iconic games. We'll take a look at those in a second. Same thing with the N64. And I think you can get a complete N64. You got to be able to get one for between like 65 and 70 bucks. And then a lot of the games that I got down here, right? Like Donkey Kong 64, this is a $25 game. Super Smash, you can probably get this for 35 or 40 bucks. If you get the Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, I think just like a regular one, not the gold cart, but just like a standard cart's probably 35, 40 bucks. I mean, so roughly around 110 to 120 bucks, you could definitely get someone an N64. Make sure whenever you get it for them, it comes with an expansion pack. You need that, especially for games like Donkey Kong 64 and other games. But that would be a great blast from the past for anyone who grew up in this generation. I think they'd really like that. You won't have to spend an arm and a leg like what you would pay for the TurboGrafx Mini, but I think someone would really like that. Same thing with the PlayStation. The PlayStation is actually even cheaper. You can get a complete PlayStation. I've seen them for as cheap as 40 bucks. I've seen, you can get a PlayStation even on eBay, 50 bucks, and it'll even come with a couple controllers and a few games. So you don't have to break the bank to help someone relive their childhood with a Sony PlayStation. And there are a ton of games that you could get for someone who's, maybe grew up on this. Now, Silent Hill would be one that, if you really love them and you want to make it a special holiday, you could get them Silent Hill. Silent Hill is going to cost you an arm and a leg. It's a very iconic game. A lot of people played this game. This is a flagship game on the PlayStation, so this is one that you may get for someone you love. If you don't want to spend 150 to 200 bucks, maybe you only want to spend 100, right? So you can always get them a copy of Castlevania Symphony of the Night. This is a great 2D side scroller. I mean, this is a game that defined a genre of games, man. I mean, it gets no more original than that. So Castlevania Symphony of the Night, they'll enjoy that. And then if you want to keep it simple, you can definitely get them a cheap copy of Ape Escape. Ape Escape is roughly 25 bucks, 25, 30 bucks. But this is a great, one of my favorite platforming games on the PlayStation. To me, the platforming and just the gameplay here rivals that of Mario 64 to me. I don't know why. It could just be me. Let me know down in the comments. But you could get them Ape Escape and a PlayStation console. All the hookups for under 100 bucks. So for under 100 bucks, you could hook someone up with a great PlayStation holiday Christmas. So just some options for you there, right? Just some options. Now, let's say you don't want to go the console route. You don't want to necessarily do the minis. You could always go the route of the handhelds. So when you start to look at the handheld options that you've got here, you've got a few, right? I'm going to start here. I'm a simple person. I think if you want to give someone a fun and simple Christmas, my recommendation, get them a Game Boy Advance SP. If you can, get them the AGS 101. It's going to cost you a little bit more. This will probably run you around 110 to 120 for an AGS 101. But the good thing is that with the 101, when you turn it on, it's backlit, right? So you never have to worry about them, squinting their eyes or anything. The cool thing about this one as well is that it plays both Game Boy Advance games and it plays regular Game Boy games. So you can give them some really good action with games like Metroid Zero Mission, Kirby, Amazing Mirror, or Wario Land 4. Like, those are some great games that you can get. They all range in price. I think Metroid Zero Mission's probably like 70 bucks. I think this Kirby game right now is going for roughly around 40 or so. And you could probably get them this Wario Land 4 for roughly around maybe 25, 30 bucks. So, I mean, for around 150, that's a great holiday package. Of course, the Game Boy games are even cheaper, and you can look up those prices. But I think this is really cool. There's no extras. There's no online capabilities. You're not trying to find anyone online. You're just popping in a cartridge, going off into your own world to conquer your own enemies and save the day. So I think this is a really great retro handheld package that you could get someone for Christmas. You have the other option if you've got someone who's a little older but is a gamer, right? They're older but they're a gamer. They're still into their games. You can definitely go the route of the Vita, right? The Vita is still a great console, and is actually the price of Vitas have gone down over the past couple months, I would say. I would say this Vita probably would have gone somewhere for around 180 or so during the pandemic. Now you could probably get this Vita for like around 120 or so. Um, I love this Vita. This is my favorite. This is the favorite version of the Vita for me. I like this one. I do have the other one, like the more skinny, slender, lighter version. But I prefer this one. But anyway, if you've got someone who's older, who's more into more slower paced games, the Vita is a great option. It does have the online capability. You can access the PlayStation Network. They can download old school PlayStation games, right? They can download PSP games, other games. There's other multimedia capabilities on the Vita, of course. And then you've got great games like Persona 4 Golden, right? Lost Dimension, you can get them that. Or you could do Tales of Hearts R. And these are just some more slower paced, like RPG games that are available on the Vita that I think would be great for someone who's a gamer. The Vita is a little more costly, right? These are going to cost you, a lot of these games are over 60 bucks. The consoles themselves are over 120 bucks. So you're probably going to wind up spending close to 200 bucks on any combination or, any kind of bundle that you do here. But it is a good idea. The last handheld idea that I got here would just be hooking them up with a 3DS. Now, I like the 3DS because the 3DS is versatile. If you get someone a 3DS for Christmas, you can get them a combination of DS games or 3DS games because this console does play them both. The cool thing about the 3DS, like the Vita, it does come with a internet Wi-Fi capabilities. You can't access like the Nintendo network, and I think they said they're going to shut this down. Or maybe they've shut this down already. Someone let me know down in the comments. Can you do anything online on a 3DS anymore, or is it over for that? Even if you can't, though, there's a ton of 3DS games that you could get. Metroid Samus Returns. This is a great version of Metroid that you can play on the 3DS. This is only like 40 bucks. You've also got games like WarioWare Gold. Those Wario games are so quirky. And I feel like some of the best ways to play games like this are on a handheld. So definitely an option that you've got there. Or NES Remix. I like this because you can play all of the best NES games right there in the palm of your hand, including games like Metroid, Kirby, Donkey Kong, right? So really, really cool stuff there on that. And then again, like I said, you've got these options with the DS. Princess Peach, want to get a little Kirby Squeak Squad action in, you could definitely go that route. Or if you want to go old school, Super Mario 64 DS, because we're not playing it on the N64. So look, check it out. Just a few different options. There are different price ranges here. You can go as low as 40 with one of the minis. You can do a console bundle for under 100 if you go the PlayStation route. For roughly around 120, you could do like a cool N64 bundle. And obviously, you're putting these bundles together yourself. If you try to go to somewhere like DK Oldies, not knocking DK Oldies, you could definitely go online and go through DK Oldies and purchase one of their bundles. They do great stuff online there. But you can assemble these bundles yourself just by going online, going on Mercari, going on eBay, or just going to your local thrift store. You can probably find a lot of this stuff super cheap. Put your own Christmas package together and have a holly jolly retro gaming Christmas. Well, that does it for me. I'm the Y2K Collector. Thanks for stopping by. Hopefully I gave you some pretty cool ideas. Let me know down in the comments if you've got anything that you're going to be giving anyone retro this holiday season. Take it easy.